I think we just faced a team in Houston that felt like their back was against the wall. I think they that's how they approached that game, and and they brought it. And I would expect nothing different out of this team. I mean, I would expect we're going to get their best game of the year, and same with the Colts after that. So, and same with Chicago after that. Same with Green Bay after that. So we're going to get everybody's best shot, and you have to understand that we have to assume we will get the best version of what they are and what they're capable of. And so with that, we've got to be on our game, and it really is about yourself, and it's about the details, to what we do. And, what we put in for this opponent, it's about the why. Why are we doing what we're doing, and the how? How are we going to do it? And that's really the starting point with this week or any team.
That's Dan Campbell talking about the opponent this week, the Jacksonville Jaguars. For more on the Jags and the Lions, let's swing it out now to our good friend J.P. Shadrick, who is the pre- and post-host for the Jags, also the host of the Doug Peterson Show. J.P., how you doing, my friend? Thanks so much for the time.
Hey, J.P.
Well, hey, good to see you guys again. It's been a little bit. 2-8 is not good for anyone's health, but I'm doing as well as can be expected, I guess.
JP, let's start there. I think when we all do season predictions, we all have the Jags winning the division. How did this year go so wrong?
It's a great question, and it kind of carried over from last year. This is a team a season ago that was 8-3, and then they collapsed down the stretch. Trevor Lawrence had injuries. Other injuries happened on offense last year, and they lost the division and missed the playoffs. And it seems like that kind of mindset has just carried over. Trevor Lawrence has been healthy for the most part this year, just hasn't been able to make big plays in big moments. The defense has been awful. They hoped some changes there would have jump-started things. They got a new coordinator, a new scheme, a couple of new pieces in free agency, but nothing has worked out. They're ranked 32nd in the league right now. So the defense has bad days. The offense hasn't been able to make big plays in big moments when they matter late in games. So now this team has lost 6 games by 1 score or less, 5 points or less, actually, in all 6. And they've had the ball in their hands over half of those at the very end to be able to try to win, and they just haven't been able to follow through and make that big play. So now injuries are creeping in, quarterback's dinged up, and it's a season on the brink right now in Week 11.
When Doug Peterson ultimately took over for the disaster that was Urban Meyer, it felt like there was, the adults were back in the room, and this relationship with Trevor Lawrence was going to be one that Lawrence could really now flourish. That has seemed to not be the case either. You talk about the season being on the brink. Is Doug Peterson's job on the brink?
I think a lot of people's jobs are on the brink, and maybe not this week especially. Just you think about the way Jaguars owner Shad Khan at the start of the season, in a very public way, in the video that goes out monthly or so called The Hunt. It's the behind-the-scenes video that all these teams are doing now, that the Jaguars' internal people have cameras all over the place now. It's kind of a hard knocks look at it. When the opening statement to the team this year at training camp, Shad Khan told the team that the goal is to win right now. There was no stuttering, there was no stammering, there was no question. I was not misquoted in the media. This is the best team we've had since I've been here as the owner, and we need to win now. Well, that puts alarm bells in my head. Oh boy, they better win now, because the owner just came out and said it in front of the team. So that's why, the tension's just starting to build a little bit. Shad Khan's not really one to make quick, fire wholesale changes in the midst of something, right? He's going to see the process out. Maybe they see some improvement somehow down the stretch. I would be surprised if anything happens mid-season. However, if they lose this game against the Lions, they are guaranteed a losing record, even if they win out. And that's not winning football. That wasn't the stated goal at the start of the year.
JP, when you see Marcus Pollard next time, tell him his brother never says, what's going on, man? How you doing, JP?
I'm doing well. Yeah, Marcus is a good piece of our organization for sure. Has connections up there at Michigan. I know that.
Yeah, 100%. His son, my nephew, Michael Pollard, still there. Talking about this Jacksonville Jaguars team, not ideally the way you wanted the season to go, but I want to talk more on a positive note. 3 years ago, you drafted Trayvon Walker, and it took him a while to get going, and it was why they take this guy number one, and the defense wasn't right, or this coach wasn't right. Seems like at 7.5 sacks this season, and last week you saw how they played against that Vikings team, who we've seen, and they can put up points. Seems like he's starting to find himself. Why is he starting to have some success this season in year 3?
A little more time on task, right? I mean, he's never going to be that bendy edge type. You know, everybody compares him to Aiden and does all that. Aiden's just a different type of rusher in general. Trayvon is a big physical human being, and absolutely strength is his game. So he's fantastic in the run game and can find a spot or two in the pass rush game, right? And he's getting a little bit better, finding some moves as that's gone along. So I think he's settling in to now in his 3rd season, which is a good step in the right direction. Josh Hines-Allen is on the other side, of course. That certainly helps things. And Josh is having another productive campaign. It maybe not be as high of a statistical number for him. But for Trayvon, I mean, he's the guy that, you know, there's a pile, right? And you're looking to see who's getting up slow, and you just hope to goodness it's not 44. Like, if it's him – I mean, he's the best, I think, all-around player on this defense right now. He may not be flashy. He may not be flashy, right? It is saying a lot. And it's a defense that's not playing well, let's be honest. But, like, he's got things that you need to have a cornerstone player to have. And they don't have many of those guys around here, to be quite honest with you. So if he goes down, that's a real problem. So I hold my breath every time because you need him to continue to ascend, to have some kind of base foundation moving forward on defense.
JP, 5 years ago, I was told that Trevor Lawrence is going to be this generational talent because what he did in high school, he was number one player. In college, he wins the national championship following Deshaun Watson, and he comes into the NFL. Doug Peterson takes over, and he comes back in the second half, and they won a playoff game against Justin Herbert. But it just hasn't seemed to turn into that story. You know, I watched a couple of these games because of Marcus now, whether it's Travis Etienne or Calvin Ridley or Ingram or Gabe, like they've provided a lot of weapons, a lot of different type of players. It just hasn't seemed to work. What do you see when you watch number 16, Trevor Lawrence? What do you see?
You know, I see a quarterback who, yes, they invested in a lot of weaponry around him over the last couple of years. They drafted Brian Thomas Jr., of course, in the first round to go with Gabe Davis, who they brought in free agency. They'd already paid Christian Kirk already. So, I mean, that was kind of the idea going into this season. But there, you know, it just seems like in big moments late in games, like we had talked about, the wrong decision is made. Or, you know what, there was a game a couple weeks ago where the Jaguars had the football and it was, you know, it's inside 2 minutes, minute 40 to go. It's first down. There's time they could even run the ball there in theory, but they decided to throw to the left side of the end zone to the third string running back in single coverage against Kobe Dean, who makes the play and the interception. Instead of throwing it into the stands and, hey, it's okay, we can go to second down, he tries to force it in these windows sometimes, and he just hasn't grown out of that. There's some key decisions that are made from time to time that you just kind of scratch your head still with Trevor. He's an aggressive running style, and that's what's got him on the injury report right now, his left shoulder. He went headfirst diving before halftime a couple of weeks ago, and really for no reason whatsoever, and comes up with an AC sprain. So there you go. And now he hasn't played for 2 weeks, and there's question marks about him for the rest of this season. That's Trevor, though, and you like his aggressive style. You wish he'd make some better decisions. He has the arm ability to make throws. Does he have that instinct, that killer timing instinct that a quarterback has to be able to read, react, and get his team down the field in a key moment and finish? We haven't seen it yet. They think it's there, as they're paying him for 6 more years after this season, so it's darn sure going to be found out or not.
JP, it's Maz. Thanks for joining us. Hey, the Giants and the Jags are 1-2 right now, the 1-2 punch in the draft. They both have a quarterback that has won a playoff game, but they both have a lot of questions about those quarterbacks. I know the Giants are pretty much done with Daniel Jones. Do you think the Jags will get another quarterback in the draft coming up in the next year or two?
I think they'll have to. Let me answer this way. To answer your question literally, yes, because Mac Jones is in the final year of his deal, and at some point they're going to draft somebody, whether it's a 7th rounder, 6th rounder yet. So I'm kind of skirting my way around your idea of what you meant by that question. I get it. Ownership believes in the quarterback. We'll see what ownership believes in the leadership around the quarterback in the coming weeks, and if there are changes, does that new incoming leadership believe the same way? I think that'll be a big piece of the conversation going into whoever's hired if they are to make changes. We're a long way from that still. But I think he's here. As of right now, unless something drastic is to change, he is the franchise quarterback for the Jacksonville Jaguars. And you might have to kind of rearrange some furniture around him to make sure he gets comfortable again and finds a way. But we're not quite there yet. That's the hard part about the season. It's week 11. We're 2 weeks of Thanksgiving. We're already talking about the draft.
Yep.
Like how in the world does that happen? And if they end up with the number 1 pick, they'd be the first team ever to have the number 1 pick in a 5-year span 3 times.
Wow.
That is impossible. And I would be shocked if the same guy picked all 3. That would be an all-timer if that were to happen.
Well, that used to be here in Detroit. So you got plenty of company. You're one of the 4 teams that have not made a Super Bowl. We lead the pack in that, but this is a new Lions regime. This Jacksonville team, JP, is treated like the redheaded stepchild of the NFL. They really don't have a home. They're vagabonds. They play in England. They're playing it at home. Now their stadium is going to be redone. I think, is it next year or the year after? Where are they going to play? What is happening with this franchise?
Well, the new stadium is slated to open in 2028. It is being renovated technically on the same site as the old one, but basically it's a renovation almost down to the studs. The team will play in Jacksonville in the stadium in 2025. In 2026, there'll be a reduced capacity of 40,000, basically no upper decks. And then in 2027, they'll have to vacate for the season and play probably in Orlando. They haven't announced yet. They were looking at Orlando and Gainesville. Gainesville's an hour and 15 away. Orlando's 2 hours away. So I could see a combination of Orlando and probably London, because the Jaguars already play 1 home game a year in London. Whatever that equals and figures out. I mean, they haven't quite finished that part. They just finished the stadium deal itself. This was the next step, is trying to figure out the logistics of how to get to that 2028 opening. So that's where they are right now. I mean, the next 3 years, there's going to be a lot of construction around here, which is a great thing. That means the Jaguars are staying in Jacksonville, and that was the stated goal of Jags owner Shad Khan. He was never planning or intending on taking the team away. He's building a $600 million hotel across the street now on the river, and now the new stadium's going in. There's a new football building that I'm talking to you from right now. So those are all things that will solidify the Jaguars in Jacksonville for generations to come. But it might be a little bit of a rocky road the next few years, especially 26 and 27 logistically. But that's just how it goes.
I say we just bet against them every damn week. That's what it sounds like to me.
Hey, JP, this is KG in the sound booth. Glad to have you on the show. And I wanted to ask you about the outlook of your guys' backfield, because you're coming in against one of the best rush defenses in the NFL. We just held Joe Mixon to under 50 yards on 25 carries. And, at the time y'all drafted Travis Etienne, I thought that he would be the future of your backfield. And, he showed some flashes, but you fast forward, he's had a lot of injuries. Now you hear the emergence of Tank Bigsby in the backfield, and I know he's been doing a lot of work for you guys, and it's kind of uncertain who is really the lead back now. Can you just speak to the state of the Jaguars backfield?
Yeah, the state of it is in the training room right now. That's the problem. All 3 running backs have been on the injury report the last 2 weeks. So they're trying to battle through some different things. Travis Etienne Jr. has been battling a hamstring issue. He hasn't really been 100%. He's been off to the side a little bit during games and unable to get back in, and maybe he's in for a drive, but not. Tank Bigsby's had some really fantastic moments this year, and he needed it, because last year They didn't trust him at all. He fumbled the ball early in the season, and he didn't really gain that trust back a year ago. Well, Doug Peterson, I think part of it by necessity, had to trust him this year because Etienne was dinged up a little bit earlier in the year and couldn't play, so Tank's the guy. And he busts off some big runs against the Colts and does some big things, and he's playing well, and he has that, he's not, his name's Tank, right? He's not necessarily a run you over type guy. He's got some moves where if you're in an open field against him, he can make you miss and keep on running by you, and he's got the home run speed to go with that. So they like his future, I think. Dearness Johnson is the other running back here, and he's been on the injury report the last week or two also. So that's where they are in the running game. Etienne seems to be trending back to health again. Is it a true 1-2 even keel punch like the Lions have? No way. I mean, they're right. They have the same exact carries in Detroit. That's a different animal. I think in theory they would lean it more towards Etienne if they are all healthy, but they haven't been. And Tank's gotten the bulk of the carries, and for the most part, it's been able to do some decent things with it. Last week or so, I mean, they were awful last week. Everybody was awful on offense last week. It was the 5th worst day in franchise history on offense last week. So don't take anything away from that game on offense last week against Minnesota.
Hey, JP, last one for you. Just, we're so in it over here, the way we look at the Lions. When when somebody on the outside looking in looks at our team here in Detroit, what do you see? What do you see in the Detroit Lions?
Well, I did 2 games up there last year for Westwood One. I did Thanksgiving against the Packers, which was a loss, and then I came back in December and did the Broncos game, which was obviously a win, and really as that team continued to surge down the stretch. I see a team that has an identity. I cover a team that doesn't have an identity. Who are the Jaguars? I have no idea what they do. I don't know how they draft. I don't know what they've drafted toward. You know exactly all the answers when you know the Detroit Lions. They are going to be a physical group from the inside out. The offensive and defensive lines is where it starts. And then you sprinkle in some fantastic skill players. Laporta, of course, if he's healthy, we'll see this week. But the outside guys are incredible. Amon-Ra is great. I mean, the speed of Jamison Williams is ridiculous. I've watched that for years in college football and beyond, and the running back game. And then the rebuild of Jared Goff's career, I think is, you guys probably hear it all the time, but I'd love to hear more about his mindset and how Mark Brunell, the quarterback's coach, and others around him there built him back up into a top-tier quarterback again. And it's paid off, obviously, with another contract. And then on defense, they take the ball away. They're nasty. They'll hit you. Even without Aiden Hutchinson, they have big guys up front that can play. And they're just fun to watch on defense because they're ball hawks on the back end. So I think they're right there as the best team in the NFL right now, them and Kansas City, because Kansas City hasn't quite shown that they're that elite level they were in the past. Yes, they're undefeated. But I think the Lions, pound per pound, are right there with them, and I think certainly are the best team in the NFC, to say the least.
Hey, great background, by the way, JP. That building is pretty nice there, and if any team should have Mark Brunell as a coach, it should be the Jags.
Well, I mean, we'll see. Who knows? But I think he's done a really good job up there, and with a quarterback who was, a little down, obviously, clearly. Yep. And it's not just Brunell. Obviously, you got to give Jared Goff all the credit here for accepting a lot of this coaching and change and kind of rebuilding his career. And it's been it's shown, because this Lions team is tough to tame. And good luck to the Jags this week. It's a tough environment.
There you go. All right, JP. Thanks so much for the time here in Detroit. We really appreciate you. Grab a Coney when you're here. Coney Island Hot. How about that?
Yeah, I might grab one of those IPAs you're reading about.
The tangerine space machine
too. We got a lot of that too. Thanks.
Juicy.
Yeah, right. Thanks, buddy. We appreciate it, JP.